What's going on, everybody? So tomorrow we're going to get a massive patch for Diablo 4, probably the biggest patch we've ever seen before. And I want to talk about that a little bit, but also I want to talk about launch plans and kind of what I'm going to decide to do upcoming the next 2, 3, 4, perhaps the next 3 months, to be honest. Now, first things first, my character I'm playing for season launch, unless something drastically changes and nerfs everything I enjoy about the rogue, is going to be rogue. One thing that I've really noticed about this preseason is the fact that I really dislike playing alternate characters. Mainly because of all the inconveniences they have alongside them. The majority of it is actually the map fog. I really dislike the map fog because what ended up happening is I'd pull up a map on my second monitor and then be staring at that map, running around trying to do the strongholds and the waypoints. And I just found that to be very unfun, not enjoyable. Which means that starting next season, I'm going to be diving into the rogue first off. A, because I would just like to play the rogue, but also B, by the time I kind of finish up all of the stuff on the rogue in terms of renown, I'll be able to easily swap over to a new class and actually have the whole map uncovered and ideally have a very smooth experience since I had in this season. And perhaps I'll be trying out the druid or the sorcerer more so than I did this season. I only played the sorcerer up to about level 50, level 60, I just found that it was pretty boring. I played the Barbarian, mainly on the hardcore version. I played the Necromancer a lot more, and for the Rogue, obviously I played the most. I actually just kept jumping back into the Rogue every day because I just enjoyed it the most. So hopefully we'll be able to play the other classes and have a little bit better time. Now, one thing that I really have to kind of consider diving into day one is the leveling build, because this is probably going to be the thing that changes the most. Well, I should say the mid-game / end-game transition of builds is probably going to be changing the most. The leveling build, I actually would guess that this is going to be relatively the same, because the new seasonal mechanics, the new codex powers that are coming out, aren't really going to be accessible for the leveling process. The only thing that will be is the buffs and nerfs that they decide to do to each skill. And unless they massively buff Barrage, Rapid Fire, Flurry, or Penetrating Shot, they're just not going to be nearly as good as Twisting Blades, and so I'll be using Twisting Blades, most likely. And I'll leave a link to this down below if you guys want to check this out. But that's probably going to be something that I'm going to have to double check, and particularly the mid to end game versions. So for example here, if I wanted to rerun my Poison Imbuement Twisting Blades Rogue here, which I have made some modifications to already, or if I wanted to run, any sort of option for the end game, well, it's probably going to be drastically different. Not only due to the buffs and nerfs, but we also have to include the new codex powers as well as the new seasonal mechanic hearts and such, whether or not they're going to be super game changing, which they claim they will be. Now, starting tomorrow, we will be getting, as I mentioned, the patch, but actually they mentioned that we're going to be able to log into our Eternal characters and transfer that progress, and also that some of the new stuff will actually be inside the game. So it might be that we can actually test out and see some of these new codex powers and whether or not they're going to be really season 1 viable. And also starting tomorrow, I'll be pumping out videos about the season 1 tier list and things like that. So that's coming from the content perspective. But in terms of actual gameplay perspective, this is actually pretty exciting, because one thing that I really enjoyed more so than anything else was playing hardcore. Now, when I was playing hardcore, this character specifically, I played exclusively duo with DM, and we played on World Tier 2 exclusively the entire time, which was actually quite difficult. And I'm interested in playing hardcore, but we're actually going to play a solo self-found hardcore, and we're going to just dive into it and see how far we can get. What this will do is, A, it'll give me just some more fun, but also B, it'll actually give me a good idea on how strong things feel from a hardcore player's perspective, and arguably this is going to be much better because you're going to be able to really feel the survivability aspect, and hopefully that's going to give a really nice transition in the end game options for builds, because if you're playing softcore, guys, you can really lower your survivability and die quite a bit, and or potentially come close to dying and not really worry about it too much. When you're playing hardcore, it's a completely different experience. And of course, as I mentioned, I'll be playing solo self-found, and it looks like some of the other people that I commonly play with, like DM, Chosen, and Kyre, we're all going to be diving into a solo self-found competition between the four of us, perhaps, and we might have some stakes there, but I'll put a video on that if that's the case. So it's going to be a pretty exciting time, and that means the launch plan. What is the plan for me on launch? Well, I've actually done a video on what my leveling process will be, but there are two things that I left out of that video because it wasn't really pertaining to leveling. I kind of mentioned it off on the side, like, hey, you can do this if you wish, or if they're particularly strong due to the patch. But I'll be leveling up as I mentioned in that video, going into World Tier 4 as fast as possible, if I can, right? That might mean that I'm level 70 by the time I enter World Tier 4 because I don't want to die, right? I'm going to be taking it a lot slower. But also, the other thing that I have to consider is I probably will not be diving into anything outside of just pure leveling until then. And that means that the new seasonal mechanic, as well as the new codex powers and Helltide zones, all those things are going to be farmed after World Tier 4. So any sort of extra gear upgrades or anything like that is going to have to wait. Unless they are game-changing and build-defining, as I mentioned in that video, then I'll probably be doing it at World Tier 3. But overall, I mean, the main progression mechanic of this game is to simply go through and level up. Realistically, all the other things inside the game don't matter nearly as much, except for just purely leveling up. And so that's mainly what I'm going to be doing in order for us to not only reach 100 pretty quick and hopefully very, very fast, but also to progress as quickly as I possibly can to give you guys actual information about the new builds and things like that. I don't know if I'm going to be blasting as hard as I did on global launch. We'll see. But I'm most likely will be streaming portions of it, so you guys can check me out on Twitch. You can follow down below. And of course, if you guys are planning to enjoy the season and want any more information about Season 1, be sure to subscribe because I'll be pumping out a lot of videos starting pretty much tomorrow with my new Season 1 leveling options and guides, as well as tier lists and the new patch overview. So thanks for watching, everyone. Hopefully you're excited because I know I am, and I'll see you all for the next one.